Hello, it's great to see you again, and welcome back to another installment of Modern Wealth Management. I'm your host, Ryan Ruff. We've got Darrick Hutchins and Ray Kramer standing by. They'll be joining me momentarily, but look, first and foremost, I want to thank you for finding your way back here to the show, whether that's joining us here on the Facebook live stream this morning, or if you're checking us out after the fact, maybe it's on YouTube or a podcasting platform. All the same, really appreciate you being with us for another wealth management related topic today. And of course, if you are checking us out on the Facebook live stream, remember, we love to hear where you're watching from, and if you've got any questions pertinent to the topic at hand, feel free to leave those in the comments below. We'd love to get, some of you guys engaging with us. So, if you have any questions, just want to say, hey, leave it in the comments below. We'd love to acknowledge it. So that being said, guys, we got a great topic lined up today. I'm excited about today's episode because, as you know, each episode we get together, Darrick and Ray are tapping into their experience, and we're talking about wealth management related strategies. Some of the case studies and the things that they work on, in their day-to-day interactions with clients. But today we're going back to the beginning, really. And the big question at hand in today's topic is, do you ultimately have what it takes to create significant wealth? We're talking about creating wealth here, not necessarily managing it, maintaining it. Of course, that does come into play a little bit, and we'll get into that in a moment. But really creating that wealth as a whole is the topic of today's conversation. So let's go ahead and bring Darrick and Ray out to get things rocking and rolling. Darrick, Ray, good to see you guys this morning. How are we doing?
Awesome. Glad to be here, Ryan. Can't wait to talk about this. This is one of our favorite topics.
Yeah, this is a good one.
It's nice to be in the office instead of outside melting in the 100-degree heat. So,
well said, Ray. Well, hey guys, I think to start our conversation today, a good place is to look at where wealth is ultimately generated. So, there's a strong case out there that can be made that entrepreneurship is really the biggest generator of significant wealth overall. Would you agree with that statement, and just that entrepreneurship might be the way to go to get to that level?
Yeah, absolutely. The statistics are very, very clear that entrepreneurship is one of the best ways, and perhaps even the most effective way, to become extremely wealthy, a multimillionaire. You take a look at the Forbes 400 list. It's published every single year, and you just go through there, and you see names like Gates and Bezos and Ellison. And, just the majority of the people on there are self-made entrepreneurs. And, but you don't even have to go to that. Just take a look at your circle, the circle that you run with, and think about the wealthiest people that you know. More likely than not, the wealthiest people that you know are probably entrepreneurs. They probably own their own business. But it's also important to recognize that just because you own your own business, just because you are an entrepreneur, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you become very, very wealthy.
Sure. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because yes, entrepreneurship is this hot topic. We're seeing so many entrepreneurs explode these days, like the names you just mentioned. But that being said, Darrick, if entrepreneurship isn't necessarily enough on its own, what then are like some of the best practices that some of the great entrepreneurs, the super successful, those significant, that level of significant wealth, what sort of best practices or characteristics these people have at hand?
Yeah. So, when we study entrepreneurship, which is something that's important in Ray and I's business, when you're dealing with people with significant wealth, it's important to know where this money came from and how it was curated. We take a look at the businesses that have been built and the individuals that have done that, and we really see four characteristics that really, really stick out. And I'll just list those out. The first one is that they all have a tremendous commitment to achieve. The second is the quality of their business model. The third would be their ability to build strong relationships. And then the fourth is their willingness and acceptance of engaging with elite wealth managers to help them get to that next level.
Yeah, I would say, the entrepreneurs that we've met over the years are definitely a different breed of people. It's not for the faint-of-hearted. And these four things that Darrick mentioned, they really have to have a commitment to all four. if one of those pieces is missing, it can really derail the effort they're putting in these areas. So as we go through this, Darrick and I have met a lot of very successful people over the years, and some that didn't do so well. And so that's how we've narrowed it down to these 4 areas that we've seen the most effective entrepreneurs really take to heart all 4 of these.
And I love that we've got them kind of segmented this way, guys. So I want to kind of unpack each of these. And the very first one that Darrick mentioned was just this commitment to achieve. I know it almost sounds cliche, but it is important and it's worth acknowledging. So let's examine this factor a little more closely, this commitment to achieve. Darrick, tell me, really what this ultimately entails.
Yeah, well, there is no free lunch, Ryan. I mean, you have to be willing and able to dedicate yourself to the task. One of my best friends is an extremely successful entrepreneur, business owner. And what he always says to new business owners is, I got good news and bad news for you. Good news is you own a business. Bad news is you own a business.
Love it.
And I think that what he's saying there is that, you're going to have to stay highly motivated, even when, and maybe even especially when things are not going your way. Persistence in the face of diversity is often hard, even with people that are extremely intelligent and driven. But entrepreneurs who become very wealthy have a clear sense that along with making their companies great, they also want to pursue significant personal wealth outside of their business. So the commitment to not only the business, but also their personal wealth is something that's on the forefront of their mind.
Roger that. And Ray, anything you want to chip in here on this
Yeah,
idea of just the commitment?
Sure. As Darrick mentioned, the good and bad news is you own a business. And I would say the good and bad of that is it never turns off. Even when you take a vacation, the business is still on your mind. And there's the cycle of building your business where, start up, you're facing adversity, and it's always there. All the entrepreneurs we meet, there isn't really an off button. So you've got to be willing to know how to manage that, to keep your sanity and to also relax when you need to. But that is key of keeping the focus and the commitment going.
Right. That's a great point. It is always living and breathing, and you got to make sure that it does get the attention it deserves. But at the same time, the mental health, some R&R every here now and then is obviously needed to keep you at the top of your game in terms of that commitment to seeing the business succeed. So guys, sometimes commitment, though, it just isn't enough, right? You have to ultimately take action. You have to do. What does this look like, and how is the doing implemented well when it comes to these individuals that you see with significant wealth these days?
Well, that's correct, Ryan. The most successful entrepreneurs and people that we find are very, very good at setting goals. For example, when it comes to their personal wealth, oftentimes they specify, how much they need, how much they want, and put a game plan in place to hit and achieve those goals. And of course, as driven entrepreneurs and driven people as a whole, typically when we start getting close to hitting that target, we often raise the target. So we actually never hit a goal. We just keep moving the goalpost. And but to build a good business and a good life, certainly you don't have to aspire to be a multi-millionaire. Sometimes it just happens because you're looking to build a good lifestyle and a good business, and all of a sudden it just turns out that you became very wealthy because of it. But what we find out more often than not, Ryan, is that most very successful entrepreneurs are very purpose driven. They have a goal and a plan in place, and that's how they achieve more than other people.
So in going with that same thought of a goal and a plan in place, let's talk about that second key factor that you had mentioned earlier, Darrick, the quality of a business model and how that drives wealth creation. How does that drive creation? How pivotal is that successful business model as a whole?
Well, the right business model might be the most important. And it's certainly what investors are going to emphasize when they consider investing in your future, in your vision. Most companies aren't coming up with a totally brand new product. I mean, I've got an iPhone sitting right here, and certainly when Apple came out with that iPhone, it was a game changer, and we know what success that drove for that company and Steve Jobs personally. With that being said, the majority of successful entrepreneurs and business owners aren't creating some kind of a game-changing product. They're entering a business that is already well established, and they're finding their own little twist. Maybe they are better at service, or maybe selling to a market that it was underserved before they came into it. You know, we have extremely successful, extremely wealthy clients that are in what I would say, really long-standing industries. I'm thinking manufacturing, trucking, real estate, packaging. All of these things are not new to our economy. They've been around for a really long time. Yet we consistently find successful entrepreneurs entering these industries, making a niche for themselves and becoming extremely successful. So I would say that with the right business model, you don't necessarily have to have a game-changing product or service. What you have to do is just do it a little bit better or a little bit more unique and find your own niche in the marketplace.
That's really important to consider. And Ray, do you have anything to chip in here on this?
Yeah, actually, Darrick, towards the end of what he was saying there, took the word that came to mind to me, and we've talked about this word for years, is the niche. There's one client in particular we're working with right now that, again, in an industry that is not unique. It's disaster restoration, hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that. But he was able to find a niche within that industry and really take advantage of a blind spot within that industry, and has quickly, within 5 years, turned it into, well, I'm going to start my own business, to where now he's looking at a $20 to $30 million buyout. But keeping the mission going, keeping the eye on the ball, and growing and evolving and really going after that niche is it's been a tremendous success story. And we've been glad to be alongside him with it.
Sure, I can only imagine. I mean, that is quite the success story. I mean, you used the term earlier. His business really mushroomed before we got on today, and well said. Well, hey guys, talking about the business model, that's one element of it, but it's the age-old expression. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Let's talk about the who. How this is the third factor that Darrick kind of mentioned earlier, is this ability to build powerful relationships and how that could impact wealth creation. Darrick, what's your take on this and the who and how equally important that is?
When we talk about this topic, I think about an old proverb that comes to mind, and it is that if you want to go quickly, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. And that's ultimately where, if you want to be a very, very successful entrepreneur and business owner, ultimately the business has to extend beyond yourself. There has to be other people that are involved. So you're going to have to build a team that understands your vision and is consistently with you to go down that path. And when we're thinking about your team, I don't want to just think about employees. You also have to think about your investors, your suppliers, vendors, and of course, your customers. All of these people are extremely important, and you have to make sure that you're building good relationships with all of these people. I'm
glad that you brought up team, because it takes a village at the end of the day to make a successful business happen. So that being said, as the entrepreneur, typically we find the entrepreneur themselves is the one that really brings a ton of passion to the table. It's their business idea. They're the one that really is the key driving force behind this idea as a whole. So then in assembling that team, an entrepreneur naturally wants to make sure that their team is equally as passionate, is, equally as ready to leap when asked. So let's talk about building that team and then, of course, maintaining that team, because boy, is that a tough challenge to climb if you're the entrepreneur. And it, based on our conversation, it's one of the more pivotal challenges to approach in this position. So walk me through what it's like to try and take the right steps to build and then maintain this high quality team.
What we find from successful entrepreneurs and business owners is that the ones that are building the best team understand that as humans, it's easy for us to be pretty selfish. And going into any venture, I think most people want to know what's in it for me. So as a business owner and an entrepreneur, and you're trying to drive and trying to push your vision forward, as you are bringing other people into this team, what you have to understand and emphasize to them is what's in it for them. How is this endeavor going to benefit them and help them hit their goals? An example might be, we see a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs that get really geeked out about the technology or the service that they're providing. And they drone on and on and on in an investor call about, this technology. The truth is that very few people are going to be as interested in your business as you. If you're an investor, quite frankly, the only thing you really care about is the returns on your money. So when you're talking to investors and trying to bring them into the fray, you need to emphasize what's important to them, and that's the return on their money. When you're talking to other partners or employees, you have to look at the situation from their eyes, understand what are they trying to get out of the situation, and make an effort to explain to them how they can benefit by helping you and your company achieve what you're trying to do.
Ray, what's your take on this?
I think one characteristic, if I could add like maybe a subset category number 5 here, I think the most successful entrepreneurs truly embrace delegating tasks to their team. They trust their employees, they empower their employees to, get the job done. It gives them satisfaction as well. And I think some, entrepreneurs, because they're so passionate about their business, sometimes have a hard time, trusting or letting people complete other tasks as well. So keeping the team engaged, it's not just about money to them, although that's probably the most important thing to an employee, but the fact that they have a sense of purpose and engagement in, achieving that goal and continuing to hit the new highs. So I think delegating and although, following up and making sure the job's done right is another characteristic of very good entrepreneurs. That way they don't have everything on their shoulders at all times.
Right. I love that you mentioned delegating, because I feel like too often do we see the entrepreneurs, that are at the top of a given company that feel like they have to have their hand in everything, because whether it's a client service business or a product driven service, they need to make sure that the service or the product is the best it can possibly be. And there's almost this level of trust that comes in there with the employees that you're delegating to. And that is so important to have that level of trust in the high quality team that you've assembled to be able to know that they're going to fulfill their duties, to the maximum level that they can. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Ray. And moving in here to the fourth, key factor that Darrick mentioned really at the top of the conversation is the willingness to engage with the right professionals. And I feel like this might be a little bit of a loaded sentence, but Darrick, walk me through this key driving factor that is the fourth and final one.
Well, I guess it is a little bit of a loaded question because obviously, this is the part where we want to talk about how we can help business owners and entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, we've entrepreneurship doesn't guarantee success, and it certainly doesn't guarantee financial success. We've seen a number of business owners and entrepreneurs who haven't been as successful. Maybe they did okay by their business, but their personal wealth never achieved what they were really trying to do. And so what we want to talk about is that, building wealth also involves paying attention to your money, paying attention to legally mitigating or even eliminating some taxes, income taxes, capital gains taxes, and estate taxes when we pass away. A diverse set of tax strategies and solutions that are coordinated around your company, your situation. When not only when you sell the business, but leading right up into that is often the difference between being extremely financially successful and not. And too often, entrepreneurs are looking to only reduce their taxes or talk about their wealth after they sell the company. We see that all the time, where a business owner may have 90 to 95% of their personal net worth wrapped up into their business. And that's great if we can all exit at the right time and the right price. But, finding those two things at the crossroad are pretty hard. To get the optimal results, you're probably going to need to enlist the help of an elite wealth manager, a professional with superior technical expertise and the ability to deliver a diverse range of financial solutions to business owners. In addition to this, elite wealth managers can also be deeply focused in on your priorities, your aspirations, your relationships, and the values of your clients. And, of course, finally, elite wealth managers can help address situations that also are often ignored by successful owners, and that is deconcentrating your risk. If you constantly put 100% of your earnings, your retained earnings, back into the business, that's very similar to a portfolio with one stock. Nobody would say that a portfolio, a $20 million portfolio that's all in Eli Lilly, nobody's going to say that that's a diversified portfolio. Yet that's exactly what business owners consistently do. They have this huge concentration risk, and obviously sometimes it works out real well when that business does well. But there's certainly some ways that we can help to make sure that that risk is diversified and to improve the likelihood that business owners and entrepreneurs hit their goals.
It's almost like, the wealth manager is a part of that high quality team that we mentioned earlier. And Ray, as somebody in that seat as that wealth manager, what do you see on this front?
I see that, a lot of these highly successful and motivated entrepreneurs really do have blinders on for an extended period of time, meaning they're so focused on their business, they don't see all the other avenues to diversify, as Darrick was mentioning. So it's really no different than, us holding somebody's hand through retirement, where we've been through it before. We look for the blind spots in a retirement plan, and we tell our clients, hey, our job in your retirement is to solve the money problems, the planning problems. You go enjoy your life. It's really no different with an entrepreneur to figure out where those blind spots are. As Darrick said, too many entrepreneurs, if they don't do that early on, they get to the point where they want to retire and they're so concentrated in their business, they're trying to figure out an exit strategy. So working alongside professionals like us along the way diversifies their portfolio and gives them an exit strategy at the end.
I love that. Guys, we've thrown a lot at our audience today in terms of these different key driving factors that ultimately can help somebody generate wealth. What it looks like to be in the shoes of an entrepreneur and just the different factors they need to consider along the way. Is there anything else we should leave our audience with today? Maybe it lives within those 4 factors. Maybe it's just an extra little intangible that, has popped into your mind, but anything else we want to leave our audience with today?
What I would leave the audience with is that whether or not you're already a successful business owner, an entrepreneur, or want to become one, engaging with somebody who works with business owners and entrepreneurs is extremely important. Ray and I, we are entrepreneurs. We own our own firm. We get to decide who we hire and how we serve our clients and how we're going to present our business. Because of that, we get a chance to work with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, and we see them at all kinds of different stages. I see them when they exit extremely successful, and I also see when it didn't work out like they wanted it to. So by working with somebody like us who has already been down the path ourselves, as well as have worked with a whole bunch of people who have their own experiences, we have the opportunity to show you some ways to avoid some conflict, to avoid some problems, as well as make sure that you don't miss out on any opportunities. Oftentimes we think about guys like Ray and I to make sure that you don't mess things up. And that's fine. We certainly provide that. But the other thing that we do is we also maybe show you some opportunities that you didn't think of before that can really compound your business, compound your wealth, and overall just help you hit your wealth goals significantly faster and more efficient than what you would without us.
Love that. And Ray, any final thoughts of your own?
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on that a little bit to say, we're talking about working with entrepreneurs. Well, we are ourselves, and we've been through this. So we have the firsthand experience of the ups and downs, and we'll be celebrating our 7th anniversary here in just a few weeks. And it has not been easy. And all the 4 categories that Darrick mentioned at the beginning, that's what's kept our sanity and kept our focus. So when we talk to entrepreneurs and give them, the advice that we do, we've been there. So we know what they're going through.
And I'm sure it's super helpful to be across the table if you're a client, knowing that, they're working with somebody that has walked the walk and talked the talk. So guys, look,
Right.
Really appreciate your time today. We hit on a lot of great topics. I think we've left our audience with a lot to consider if they're either in entrepreneurship currently or if they're, even thinking about approaching it. But either way, really appreciate your time today. And I'm looking forward to the next episode already.
Yes, so are we, Ryan. This has been a lot of fun.
All right.
Well,
Thanks,
hey,
Ryan.
No problem. And hey, look, we want to thank you too, our audience, for being with us here on today's episode. If you liked what you saw, you liked what you heard, feel free to, of course, like, comment, subscribe to the show, share this information with friends and family. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this is modern wealth management strategies we're talking about today. We had a fun little conversation, on generating that level of significant wealth, and we hope to have you with us for the next episode. So for Darrick and Ray, I'm Ryan Ruff saying so long, and we thank you so much for joining us on today's edition of Modern Wealth Management.